Welcome in, everybody, to the Fly High Wi-Fi Mental Health Podcast. Tonight, we're going to be talking about bulimia and domestic violence statistics. We've been kind of going down like body shaming and reflection of your body and stuff for the summertime because we know that a lot of times less clothing is required during the summertime and people get an image and a lot of thoughts in their head about themselves, and it can bring a negative mindset to yourself and create the mindset that you got to do certain things to fit into an image that you don't have to. So we're going to continue with that as it is still summertime, and we want you guys to feel comfortable in your own bodies and be proud of who you are. And if you're not, take the appropriate actions and make sure that you can be comfortable in your own body and walk with confidence and carry yourself with confidence. Because if you're breathing, you should be confident in yourself no matter what you do. So let's get started with that. I'm Sharp, Pros23, Ryan, whatever you guys want to call me. This is Mrs. Wi-Fi, and hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, I'll jump in now. We'll start with bulimia. And like Ryan was saying, we're kind of going down. We've been talking about different types of eating disorders and body image the last few times. The last time we talked about anorexia. So moving along to another well-known, or at least seems to be a well-known eating disorder, which is bulimia. So bulimia is a serious illness that causes severe problems with a person's eating behaviors. It is marked by uncontrolled episodes of overeating, which is called binging, and this is followed by purging, which is methods such as vomiting or misuse of laxatives or water pills to kind of get what they had ate out of their systems. Bulimia can become life-threatening if the binge purge cycles can happen to be several weeks, several times a week,
Several.
many times a day. So that's when your body's not taking in enough nutrients that because you're
Right.
purging more than what you're taking in. Oftentimes, people with bulimia have normal or above normal body weights.
You say
So
normal
this,
or above?
yeah, normal or
Okay.
above. So this lets them hide the problem for years. Many people with bulimia don't get help until they reach the age of 30 to 50. By this time, the eating behavior is deeply rooted and harder to change.
Okay, it's like become a habit. It's
Yeah,
something that
it's
you
become
do
part
for
of their
more than, they
lifestyle.
say a habit is what, 21 days of continuous, it becomes a habit. So if you do it for years, obviously it's going to be really hard to break.
Um, and the fact that they have like a normal body image or they're a little above, people aren't looking for abnormal eating habits.
Right.
Like with anorexia, they looked, they had that under body weight, so people were looking more for it. So it's like less likely for people to notice it. So there's two ways people with bulimia restrict calories. So there's the purging type, which we just talked about. This is when people use self-induced vomiting or misuse of laxatives to clear their intestines. And then there's the non-purging type. People, uh, these people use other behaviors such as fasting or excessive exercise rather than.
We say fasting or excessive exercise.
Mhm.
So they're probably
So they
exercising without intake.
um, without intake and or they're trying to excessively burn the amount of calories that they did.
Yeah.
Who's at risk for bulimia? Bulimia often affects females, which we talked about that females are more likely to develop eating disorders, but it doesn't leave
Right.
out males. And this often starts in the teenage years. People with bulimia are more likely to come from families with a history of eating disorders, physical illness, or other mental health problems. And they often build off of anxiety disorders or mood disorders. We talked about a few
Anxiety or
mood.
mood.
Yeah.
Man.
There's besides like kind of the family history or kind of building off other disorders.
Okay. I see, like you said, it starts in the teenage years, and we notice a pattern with a lot of it starting in like the teenage years when your body's changing the most. And I want to say like middle school to high school is always been one of the biggest transitional periods for kids when their body's changing. They're truly coming into who they are, and if they surround themselves with the wrong people or try to keep up with the Joneses, as we'll say, right?
Mm-hmm.
They start to develop these mental thoughts and they start to go down these negative paths to try to fit in, and it's a shame. It really is. That's our society, and we need to make the positive step to making it to where people need to feel comfortable with who they are.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head for that point. So it talks about what causes bulimia. Um, and experts don't really know what causes bulimia, but that social or societal like culture or ideas is kind of where it stems from. So put that one away.
Yeah.
Um, how do they diagnose bulimia? Since there is that normal weight, kind of normal look, bulimia is very hard to diagnose. It's kind of like the person has to openly tell a psychiatrist or a doctor that they're doing these behaviors. Unless they're at a progressed state where it's causing like ruptures in their stomach and stuff like that, they're not going to know.
Right.
They sometimes can do blood tests to check your overall nutrition, but that's also at like a progressed state in what they're
Right. It'd
doing.
be too late to notice it without them telling them.
Mm-hmm. So at that point, when you're reaching that point where the doctors can like
Physically
test,
see it too.
physically see it, you're kind of hitting those points where it can become deadly.
Right.
How can bulimia be treated? And it talks about getting a therapist in your family involved to focus on changing your behaviors and fixing the nutritional problems. So kind of the same as like the anorexia background. You want to get involved and kind of change those habits that you've developed and kind
Break
of
this. Break the little
refocus.
habit and cycle that you have
Mhm.
created.
It looks at the link between your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So you're wanting to know why you're having maybe these destructive behaviors behind what's going on. So you
Kind
want to
of find
start from a
the
basis of
root of
what.
the cause, right?
Yep, and then you'll want to get with a nutritionist to kind of get yourself on that healthy cycle of feeling better about yourself and kind of leaving all of the others behind. Because, like you were saying, once it becomes a habit, it's going to be hard for you to break how you've done things. So you're going to start a new habit essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. The way to kill a current habit is to replace it with a new habit. So that's something that we taught a
Um,
lot in the military was what like repetitious of the same thing when it becomes a natural thing for you to do every day is then when it becomes a habit. So sometimes it takes 3 days, sometimes it takes months, but normally it's like they said around a 21 day period for a
I feel
habit to
like
be created.
I think 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes you end up needing to have a hospital stay to kind of you're forced to kind of break that habit, and others sometimes put on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicine to help them through their process. Um, what are possible complications of having bulimia? The hole in the stomach, so stomach rupture. You can have heart problems due to the lack of minerals and electrolytes that your body needs, such as potassium and sodium. You can have dental problems, inflamed esophagus, swollen glands near the cheeks. So that is one of the kind of signs that you can see from somebody is they have swollen cheekbones or
Swollen
like a
cheekbones.
swollen
Okay.
this area is kind of swollen.
Wow.
Um, not always the case, but that's like if you're noticing somebody having these behaviors and an indication is that that area is kind of swollen.
You said like,
Irregular.
oh, go ahead,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna
No, go
say,
for it.
like you say the minerals and vitamins that your body needs, right? So I got diagnosed with a potassium deficiency probably 4 years ago. And I didn't realize how important potassium is for your heart because obviously your heart's your number one muscle in your body. And I didn't know potassium was so involved in your heart. And I was wondering why I was like having heart pains all the time. And I come to find out I was at like a 13 on the scale out of 30 was minimum. So I was 17 points below like minimum. And then they put me on a potassium supplement and I took it for like 8 months and then my potassium levels came back up. So and
Mhm.
then I haven't had any problems since then. That was good. Cricky said thyroid.
So it might have an because like your thyroid has a lot to do with like weight. So
Right.
it doesn't specifically call out thyroid in any of the studies that I read, but I'm sure that it impacts your thyroid in some ways.
Juice me assist living on energy drinks don't help. At that time I wasn't on that many energy drinks.
Um, it says kidney problems. Uh, it can increase your addiction, like an addiction or substance abuse, or even compulsive behaviors. And then it also says it can lead to suicidal behaviors as well. It's kind of like a downhill slope. I didn't send this to you, but
Oh, you can send that to me, you said? I don't know if I can be able to
no,
share it. I might be able to.
I don't have it saved, so I'll just let me see that. No, maybe so. You pay attention?
Uh, it's not lock. It's not bringing it in. You're
Well,
frozen, actually.
am I? My computer's
Yeah.
acting funny. The one screen turned off while I was talking. It
Oh
like
yeah, it is.
flashed
I think
and
it
turned
locked your
off.
camera too, because you're there. It goes. You're back.
Um, well, anyways, it just talks about the different things that you can look for in somebody who might have bulimia is the swollen cheeks or jawline. They might faint often because they're not getting the nutrition they need. Muscle weakness, bloodshot eyes, dehydration, um, the excessive exercising, frequent bathroom visits, an increased fear of gaining weight, feeling out of control. Like there's just several of the different things that you can look out for.
You guys have any questions currently in chat right now? I swear I'm gonna throw this chair out the door. The like hydraulic pump just drops me, and I'll fall like 3 inches in my seat, and it's just so annoying randomly. Today, AP, we're talking about bulimia and domestic violence statistics. So we already started with bulimia, and we're getting about some of the stuff Alyssa has, and we've talked about it a little bit. So we're gonna continue with bulimia.
Um, so now moving into the statistics, around 1.5% of women will have bulimia in their lifetime. So
1.5%.
it's a lot lower than what
You would
the
imagine,
anorexia.
yeah, yeah.
Around 0.5% of men will have bulimia in their lifetime. So
That's
only
significantly
1% have.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2% total, basically, between men and women in their lifetime.
Around 1 in 10 people who purge through their self-induced vomiting with bulimia will experience painful cheek and face swelling. So that's why they call out that face swelling because most people you're going to see that.
Okay, that's understandable then.
1 in 10 bulimia patients suffered from excessive alcohol use. So you can tie them together. And then fewer than half of those with bulimia have ever sought treatment for their eating disorder.
Okay. Sorry, I was typing instead of talking. Do you have chat pulled up today?
I did, but now my screens are
Oh
all
yeah,
over
yeah, yeah.
the screenshot off. Yeah, page off.
So anorexia more common than bulimia. We have found out, but both of them are still a very serious thing to be taken into consideration for those who have them. I think one more with bulimia, it's more like, as crazy as it sounds, more as a self-induced habit through mental health versus anorexia,
Mhm.
what can actually be stemmed through mental health.
Yep.
Yeah. So anxiety, number one reason for bulimia is what you said, right?
Anxiety or depression. So,
Depression, right?
um,
So again, we talk about
and
all these
then
things, and they all tie into a couple of the categories.
and then it was saying like a lot of the pressure from bulimia is what you were saying, the society around them. They
Society
don't feel
driven, yeah.
yeah.
Body image, body shaming, trying to fit in with the keep up with the Joneses kind of thing,
Mhm.
fit in with the popular crowd.
Or how experts haven't really found like a true reason why bulimia comes up, but oh,
Yeah.
my screen came up
Yeah,
on this
anxiety and
one. So
depression, AP. We talked about it. I kind of touched on how I felt like through your middle school and teenage years into high school that you're trying to fit in and trying to be popular and trying to keep up with the Joneses, as I've always said as a kid, to figure out what you should do that. And if you're not in that body image or you're being body shamed by other people in school, it's going to cause you to do things that you shouldn't. Anxiety and depression, it's going to lead into both of those that create you to create a habit called bulimia. That, that's how I feel. That's was my main focus on it. And then she talked about it, and they say that society driven is one of the biggest reasons with anxiety and depression. You guys have anything else on bulimia? Why we're getting ready to transition into domestic violence statistics.
we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm trying to get situated. So all right, so moving on to domestic violence. Talk a little bit about like what does domestic violence is and like different things you can look for and then like different stats throughout. This is not really like, I guess, it's not tied to any mental health. I didn't like tie it to any like mental health, but it ties into a lot of mental health topics that we've talked about because it can tie to PTSD, it can tie to anxiety, it can tie to depression.
Right.
Uh, it impacts a lot of different people, and it's honestly on a rise throughout. So I just thought it was a topic
Good
that,
good little secondary topic to go off of.
sorry, my screens just keep like flickering. So one just turned back on and not turned back
Oh,
off.
okay.
So
Might be a power supply thing. Might
yeah. Um, so domestic violence is a pattern of cruel behavior where a person uses different types of abusive ways to control somebody. Um, And then, so what is controlling behavior? Controlling behavior refers to an abuser maintaining control or dominance over the victim. They usually believe they're justified in their controlling behavior. This behavior is often
You're going crazy again? Distracting you?
yeah, because it's like bouncing back and forth. Um, this behavior is often subtle and nearly always just like inside the relationship. So you're never going to see it like outside, like behind closed doors,
Okay, so
essentially.
they do it behind closed doors. Okay. Technical difficulties over there.
A lot of them. Um, in the US, controlling behavior or coercive behavior is currently not illegal unless it escalates
Into
um,
physical.
to physical violence. So that's why it is like so widely spread.
It's crazy. Maybe we should make a thing to where mental and emotional damage becomes a controlling
Mhm.
habit, and then it can be charged with that. But how do you prove it?
And that's where the issue lies is they don't know how to prove that you're actually being damaged by the behavior that they're doing.
Right.
And
The
then they
only
also
way
say that you can just leave, but in some of those cases, can you just leave?
the mental control.
But they're not looking into that mental aspect of
Right.
the control that's going
Because you
behind it.
can't
They're just
really
looking at.
you can't really prove that. Like
Mhm.
how do they have mental hold over you? Well, you'd be surprised.
Yeah. There's other countries though where this behavior is illegal. So if you have like the text messages of like proving narcissistic behavior and stuff, that they can go into it and get like a restraining order and stuff like that. But that's not valid in the US.
Yeah,
I don't
video.
have the list
I
of the
guess
countries.
video would probably be one of the biggest things anymore. Everything's on
Mhm.
video, so if they can catch that on video, that might be more supportive. But text messages, you can take that person's phone and send some random stuff and make it look like it was them, you know.
Yeah,
So that's kind of why I think the U.S. probably frowns upon that one.
yeah. So different forms of abuse is sexual abuse, financial abuse. You know, we've talked about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Verbal abuse, isolation, and stalking.
Peeping
So
toms, no, stalking. Yeah,
essentially, a lot of these, and the sexual is physical, but financial abuse is not physical. Verbal is technically not physical, but it has a mental gain.
right.
Isolation doesn't have to be physical, but it's isolating from those around you. And then the stalking can be, I guess, physical.
Physical,
Because
mental.
it talks about like damaging property
Okay.
and stuff like that.
So the main one that everybody recognizes for domestic violence is going to be physical,
Yes.
because it's seen with your eyes. It's one of those things that you can recognize if somebody has a black eye or bruises on their body. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the one where it's most noticeable, but wounds aren't always visible, and that's where the mental side comes into
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And we talk about that with like PTSD and depression and anxiety. All those are wounds that you can't see. So
So domestic violence, also called intimate partner violence, occurs between people who are in an intimate relationship. I'd also say this goes like further. It can be friendships because we talked about setting boundaries with people. So
right,
you can have a friendship that they're crossing your boundaries. So you have to think that they're being abusive towards you in certain ways. So Domestic violence can take many forms, including emotional, sexual, and physical, and threats of abuse. Abuse by a partner can happen to anyone, but domestic violence is often or most often directed towards women. Domestic violence can happen in heterosexual and same-sex relationships. Abusive relationships also always involve an imbalance of power and control. An abuser uses intimidation, hurtful words, and behaviors to control a partner. It may not be easy to identify domestic violence at first. While some relationships are clearly abusive from the outset, abuse often starts subtly and gets worse over time. You might be experiencing domestic violence in your if you're in a relationship with someone who calls you names, insults you or puts you down, prevents you or discourages you from going to work or school or seeing your family members or friends, tries to control how you spend your money, where you go, or what medicines you take, or what you wear. Now, keeping in mind that you are in like a partnership,
Right.
there is
And
compromise, but there's also lines that are crossed based on
you
different
got
types of.
your boundaries. You got to set your boundaries inside your relationship too.
Mhm.
So,
Acts jealous or possessive, or constantly accuses you of being unfaithful, gets angry when drinking alcohol or using drugs, threatens you with violence or a weapon, kicks or hits, kicks, shoves, slaps, chokes, or otherwise hurts you, your children, or pets, forces you to have sex or engage in sexual acts against your will, blames you or his blames you for his or her violent behavior or tells you that you deserve it.
deflection to
And nothing
justify
good to
what they're
them,
doing
like,
wrong.
I think
That's
it's
huge.
flirting.
Deflection to make them feel like there's a reason behind what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
is right. And I think a lot of that is probably one of the biggest things is it becomes then not only physical but then leads into the mental side of it when a lot of people are scared to leave or it's all their fault. They feel like everything they've done is their fault and it's wrong for what they're doing. But in all honesty, they're being mentally controlled. They're scared.
Yep. And a lot of times that's where it stems from is like the fear that if they do eventually
How far
leave,
will they
that's when
take
they're
it next
actually going
time?
to, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, another thing she talked about is forced sexually against your will. Just because you're in a relationship does not mean you are giving consent. This is one of the biggest things that I learned doing a lot of the training with the military. Just because you're in a physical relationship with somebody does not mean you have consent just because you're in that relationship. If you are being forced against your will, that is sexual assault still. So make sure to not allow this to happen to where you feel mentally controlled and that you're giving consent just because you're with somebody. No is no. Exactly. That is exactly AP. And we know through the training that we did in the military that we learned a lot about this. There is a thing called marital rape, guys. So make sure you're paying attention to yourself. And if you're being controlled, if you need help, guys, there's help out there. I don't know. I can look up the domestic violence hotline, give you guys a telephone number or a link, and share it in chat. Um, and if you don't want to take it that far yet, guys, remember our DMs are open. We're not registered as doctors or counselors or anything like that, but we are here to help and we will try to take the appropriate action to give you guys the resources to get the help that you need. Even if we're been letting you have our ear for a minute to talk it through and you guys got to hear sometimes what is happening to yourself through your own voice to actually recognize what's going on instead of holding it in all the time. So myself, Alyssa, Fly High Wi-Fi's Discord, Facebook, Twitter, all of them DMs are open, guys. Don't be scared to use them, and I will look up that information for the domestic
And
violence
just to
hotline.
add on a little bit too, even just like the no is no,
No is no.
coercion is yeah, coercion is rape too. So even if you're pushed to a point where you say yes and you really didn't want to, that still is not okay. Um, just along the lines of what you were saying. And then it talks about in this, a lot of times your partner blames you for the violence that is being caused. Abusive partners rarely take responsibilities for their actions.
Thank you, Cricky, for placing the phone number in there. They do have a live chat, guys. They also have only a texting, or they have a hotline. And then also here is the actual website for the domestic violence. Oh, never mind. Cricky's on it. Thank you, Cricky. You're amazing.
Um, so there's some statistics that I wanted to jump into for vital domestic violence statistics in 2024. So that's this year.
This year's already opened up, guys.
They've already started putting out some statistics, and I'm sure it's like gathered information over the year, but they posted it this year. So around 1 in 5 victims in homicide cases are killed by their intimate partner.
One more time.
Around 1 in 5 victims in homicide cases are killed by their intimate partner.
20% of homicide cases were killed by their domestic partner. That's why they always go to the spouse first, guys.
47.3% of women and 44.2% of men reported some form of domestic violence in their lifetime.
It's crazy.
So that's 1 out of every 2 women. And
One out of
that
every
is,
two women. That's 50%. That's crazy.
and then it's 2 in every 5 men.
Two in every five, man. So it's 40%. Guys, stop beating the crap out of each other. Jesus.
Um, Results from the NSBIS survey showed that 19.6 of women and 7.6% of men experience contact sexual violence from an intimate partner with some type of non-consensual sexual act from their intimate partner.
Stats are already blowing my mind.
Intimate partner violence, or IPV, starts usually before the age of 25.
Early adulthood.
Mhm. An estimated 11 million males and 16 million females are reported IPV or teen dating said it occurred before they were 18. So this is starting when they're still in high school.
Wow. And again, that's the peer pressure. A lot of it probably
Mhm.
when you're in school, the peer pressure to all your friends are doing it or being called a virgin and taken in a negative way instead of
And this doesn't even have to be, it is the controlling aspect, the
right.
stalking aspect,
Okay.
the
Yeah, we got all five aspects, I
um
guess you can say too. Yeah.
so yeah, this is like referring to pretty much to this teen dating. So
Just
you're imagining
physical. Yeah.
just any of it. So you imagine emotional toll that you're still growing up and
You're
trying to
still
figure out who
learning who
you
you
are,
are. Yeah.
and then you're having people stalk you or whatever it may be, and that it's all those that we listed at the beginning that they're going through, because it doesn't say what it was just these people reported some type of
Right. And that makes
abuse
me
from.
think, how often do people change who they feel naturally growing up because of these things? Like
And imagine
you're
how many
losing
people haven't
yourself and trying to
reported.
be somebody else just to
Mhm.
so you lose your natural self, and then that's when we find out later in life that a midlife crisis gives you that chance to regain yourself.
Every day over 20,000 phone calls reporting domestic violence are made in the United States.
United States alone, 20,000 phone calls a day.
Almost 20 people are physically abused by their domestic partner every minute.
20 per minute. Because we got a problem. Sounds like we got a big problem. Not only that, but like mental health, guys. It's apparently it's not talked about enough. Domestic violence, mental health, suicide. All these things are what we're doing here to try to raise awareness and bring light to the situation and make sure that everybody understands why it's important to be talked about.
93% of pregnant women experience um, intimate partner violence. In a study of 830 pregnant women, the prevalence of domestic abuse came to 93.1%.
93% of pregnant women IPV. I don't understand. That's crazy.
60% of children in the US witness domestic violence against a parent.
See, and that's where the verbal part can come into now, I believe, because kids witnessing their parents fighting is technically domestic violence if you're being verbally abusive.
Nearly 40% were the direct victims of the domestic abuse involving two or more violent acts.
Millions of, millions of young people lose their childhood due to trying to be adulting too soon due to being controlled by another. I could understand that.
63.8% of multiracial women reported violence in 2016. So this one pulls from 2016.
You said 68%?
63.8.
Oh, or 63.8. Okay, so that's biracial, you said? Or multiracial?
Multiracial.
Okay. Women.
And then 51.5 multiracial men reported violence.
I'm gonna be honest. Seeing the report of the stats so high on men is kind of a little bit surprising because I feel like men don't always want to admit to their violence from women. They will be looked upon in a negative, like in a weak manner, that they're not a man, and but it's not about that. It's about being honest and being real with the situation. If you're being abused mentally, verbally, physically, it needs to be reported and needs to be taken care of.
I'm gonna be right back because one of the dogs is whining.
Gotta go outside.
Yep.
Gotta go outside. Take them outside. Guys in chat, you guys got anything while Alyssa takes the dogs outside real quick? Oh, I get what you're saying, Cricky. You didn't hold the shift button. Guys, I appreciate you guys all being here today. I know we haven't been here in a couple weeks. Life in the summer is busy. We're trying to get back on a steady track. It's been good to do this because it makes me feel better knowing that we're on a steady schedule with these, as you guys are here every time and everybody thanks us for doing these, and it means a lot to have the feedback and the support from you guys to do this every week. It lets me know that we're reaching people and that it's just not for nothing, and it's huge. It's huge. We got to raise the awareness. That you guys see the numbers are mind boggling of domestic violence in the United States alone. 20 every minute. 20 every minute. 20,000 phone calls a day. It's serious. And she's back. Thank you, Juice. Appreciate it.
Um, did I miss anything?
What's that?
Did I miss anything?
No, I was just thanking everybody for being here and their continued support for every time we go live.
Yes, it was greatly appreciated. So next one is Kentucky has the highest rate of domestic violence across the United States.
It would be Kentucky. The middle of the United States right there.
The state has the highest rate of domestic violence at 45%,
40 one more time 45.
45.3, yeah.
Shoo.
But the lowest rate is 27.8%, and that's South Dakota. So it's not that far away, like if you think about
Wait,
it.
so that's the lowest you said?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest.
There's not that many
When you
people in South Dakota.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like there's way more land than people that's not filled in South Dakota because South Dakota is a big state. But I wonder what the population. I'm gonna look at the population in South Dakota while we're doing this.
Um, while you figure that out, I'm gonna keep going.
That sounds good.
Women aged 18 to 24 at the highest risk of domestic violence in the US.
Cruising North Dakota, Creaky. All right, so
21% to 60% of domestic violence victims have lost their jobs due to the abuse.
wow.
64% of these victims said that their abuse affected their ability to work, and 40% said their domestic partner harassed them at work, in person, and over the phone that impacted their livelihood.
All right, so we have a little bit of population numbers here between the two states. South Dakota, as of 2024, has 928,767 registered residents. Kentucky, 4.52 million.
Yeah, I feel like
So
that percentage is a little
almost
skewed.
5 times the amount of people in Kentucky versus South Dakota. So
I feel
that
like
makes sense.
yeah. Well, I don't know if they like adjusted the percentage to make it
Like per
kind of,
capita, maybe kind of thing, and
yeah.
did
So
a
I don't know what
ratio
they
for it.
did,
Yeah.
if they just left it the way it was, or if they made it
Wyoming only
more.
has a population of 575,000 people. That's the lowest population in the United States. I think I got that in my city.
Um, so 14 to 25% of women are sexually assaulted by their domestic partners during a relationship. That was the last statistic that I have.
Okay. So to put that, a whole state of Wyoming had 575,000 people in it. My county of Monroe County has 157,000 people in it. And that's only just a little corner of Michigan down there. You got this whole ass state. That's crazy. That's all you got on domestic violence?
Yep.
All right. All right, guys. Again, we talked about it. We're not trained professionals. We don't have degrees. We don't have that, but we are here. You are not alone. We are here. If you need somebody just to listen or get it off your mind to talk about it, and then maybe we can help you get the resources that you need or lead you to the places you need to go, we are here. There's plenty of people in our community that you can reach out to. I'm sure there's people listening right now that have been through this, that have experience in it, and will be willing to help if need be. We put the resources in there. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is in chat. The telephone number is 1-800-799 SAFE, if you want to remember that. SAFE 7233. Uh, Give it a call. Don't be scared to reach out. Again, our DMs are open. We have the Facebook exclamation point FB. We have the Discord exclamation point Team Dissy. Guys, we're here. Reach out. Twitter, Facebook, everything. All right, guys. So we talked about bulimia. We talked about domestic statistics, domestic violence statistics. Obviously, the numbers on domestic violence are just mind-boggling. They're huge. They're crazy. Let's fix it. Let's be part of the solution, not the problem. All right. If you recognize anybody that might be in a domestic, don't intervene yourself. Maybe talk to them off to the side. Don't do it in front of the person that you feel. Be there for them. Let them know that you are there, and don't let them suffer. But as a lot of it's seen, they might be being pushed to think it's their fault. So just try. If you can help, do it. If they don't want your help, then just keep an eye to make sure that they're safe and that it doesn't escalate too far if you can. Um, I have nothing else for you guys. I want to say thank you on behalf of Fly High Wi-Fi, myself, Mrs. Wi-Fi. Uh, a great show. Appreciate you guys for being here day in, day out, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye.
Bye.